Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. So I have my nails on and one nail is broken. Well, it's not broken. I kind of cut it off because I hurt myself and I can't get it to come out. So I just decided to cut it off because this nail was really painful. So if you notice that's why. But yes, so I'm actually watching a Booktube live show by Gabby Reeds where she's talking about Beautiful Ugly, and that is the book that I just finished reading. And I'm feeling some type of way about that book, if I'm being completely honest. I'm feeling some type of way about that book. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. As you can see from the title of this video, I'm going to be doing my bi-monthly wrap-up video. I feel like this should have gone up like 2, 3, 4 days ago, but better late than never. So yeah, so I'm going to be talking about every book that I read in the month of January and February. And yes, I hope you guys like this video and let me know which books you read in the month of January and February, and let me know which books you hated. Let's start with that. But anyway, let's get into it. January. The first book that I read in January was Resort to Romance by Casey Sophia. Now, this book was part of my 2025 predictions, anticipated new releases, 2025 anticipated new releases, predictions, 5-star predictions, something of that sort. I will put that one up here. And that's basically where I read one book. There's 12 books in that video and I read one book per month. So that one was actually a book that was released in December, like end of December, and so that was my January book. That was the yes. So was this book 5 stars? Let's start there. No. I didn't finish this book. I DNF'd this book and I'm not sorry I did, because I'm not sorry I DNF'd any of these books that I DNF'd, because there are a few. Okay, there are a few. But this book was traumatizing to read. Like I was in visceral pain reading this book, trying to get through this book. I think I got like 15% or something like that, because I couldn't get with it. Like she would be on, like she was just overly descriptive. I think the writing was so bad. The writing was so bad that I couldn't even get to any part of the book where I liked the plot or anything of sorts. The writing was dismal. I She kept describing every little thing. I got into my house. I sat on my purple sofa and put my feet on the couch, and just as I was doing that, the birds were chirping outside. Like she was describing every single little detail, and I was like, you don't have to tell us. She'd be on my purple sofa on the couch in my living room, right on the corner next to. I'm like, girl, we don't need to know the exact position of your couch. We know where a couch usually stays. She was describing every little thing, and it was just painful to read. It was painful to read, okay? I could like maybe go back and try to figure out which parts, but that book was just painful to read. It was painful to read that book. And I don't know how people got through it. I really tried, because I felt like the premise was going to be cute. I felt like the book was going to be super cute, but no. Not So Perfect Strangers by L.S. Stratton. And hear me out. I DNF'd this one too because I was not having a fun time. Basically, the premise of this book is that two women meet, right? And then they plot to murder their husbands, right? It's like it's kind of like a kill for you, kill for me type of thing. But I didn't even get to the part where they plot to murder their husbands. I was at the part where, okay, let me put it this way. One of them has a husband who is abusive. The other one has a husband who's abusive in a less than type of way. Basically, he cheats on her. So I don't know why they felt that putting these two women together and making it a kill for you, kill for me thing was a good idea, because her reason for hating her husband, and I hated the fact that she made this other woman because, okay, so the one that's being abused by her husband is a black woman, and this is a rich white woman who's a very rich white woman who's spoiled, essentially. So I'm like, I don't know why this rich white woman had to go and make this poor black woman who was being abused by her husband, who literally had to go back home because her stupid son decided, I'm not running away with you. You run away by yourself. I'm going back to my home, going back to my girlfriend, going back to my school. You run away by yourself. Like, he chose his girlfriend and his friend over his mother. I will disown you, child, okay? I will disown you. I'm not about to be making I will disown you, okay? Because what do you mean? Like, you know I'm being abused in this house and you still decide to stay? You still decide to stay. Like, you still decide to run back to your dad because you're gonna miss your girlfriend and your friends too much. I just couldn't get with that. I thought this son was really, really stupid. And I couldn't get with that. But then, what made me more upset was the fact that this rich white woman made this poor woman think that she was also being abused. Whole time he just cheating on her. Whole time he don't even love her no more. Whole time he wanted to go and get somebody younger because he likes them young. Because he found her and she was young. And because he's a cheater. Because that's what he does. And he had cheated on his previous wife with her. So it was just basically karma. And she wanted this black woman to be out here thinking that they were in the same boat. I didn't like that. I couldn't get with that. And I was just annoyed. I was annoyed by so many things so early on in the book. And I was just like, there's no way I'm continuing with this, right? No. So I stopped reading it. I feel like it could have been a good book. Honestly, I honestly feel like it could have been a good book, but no. I just couldn't get with it. That's my point. I honestly just couldn't get with like that type of behavior. I couldn't get with that type of behavior. No. Days in June by Tia Williams. I have this the physical copy of this book. I could take it out, but I'm lazy, okay? So 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, and I love this book so much. I think I've spoken about it. Either I spoke about it in content that I didn't end up uploading or not, but I'll just repeat myself. I love this book so much. This book is it, what do they call it? There's this trauma bonding. Is it trauma bonding? Yes. Did I care? No. I loved these characters so much. I loved Sean and I loved Ava. Okay, so this book is about Sean and Ava, and they had 7 days in June when they were like much younger. I don't like books about kids falling in love. I see no point in them. But they met when they were like 16, I think, and they had like 7 days in June, and then something happened and they never saw each other again until years later when they're older. They meet up at some book thing, and they're both authors. Sean is like a best-selling author who writes random books. I don't know what type of books he writes. He just writes random books and random genred books. And Ava is a erotica author. So they're both writers, and Sean's just been doing really, really well for himself. He's written bestsellers, like I said. And so he's basically like, he's like a well-known author that everybody seems to love. Okay, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, so they meet up at this thing, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I know you. Oh my gosh, I know you. And come to find out that in their books, they keep writing like they are the they keep writing about each other in their books, right? So Ava has this really popular book series, this erotica book series. I think it's about wolves or vampires or something like that. And the main male character in that book is basically Sean. And the same with Sean, like he's written like a few bestseller books, and the the books are mainly about Ava. And so we just go back into what their lives were like before and what had happened in that time, and we just kind of watch them rekindle what they had. And she has a 12-year-old daughter. I don't really like reading books where there's kids involved because the kids are never realistic in my opinion. Like she's 12, but she speaks like she could be 18, okay? But that's, I mean, I still thought the book was cute. I feel like unrealistic kids in books doesn't deter me from reading a book. I don't really care for it anymore, because I feel like in my mind I've already just come to accept that kids are gonna be unrealistic in books. That's just that. So, yeah, so I really loved this book. The way that this man loves her, it was it was it was it was just so beautiful. And I am obsessed. Okay, I wish I had met somebody like that when I was that age, but nobody that I met at that age was worth much. Okay, nobody that I met at that age was worth much, but I absolutely loved the way he loves her. And I think it's just it's such a beautiful romance. And I just I loved it. I thought it was a beautiful romance. I thought their love story was beautiful. I was just so obsessed with their romance. And I gave that book 5 stars. Okay, so I want to kind of like give a spoiler because I kind of want to go on a little rant. Okay, so I'll just put spoiler here. But her mother is evil. Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean you're jealous of your 16-year-old who found somebody to love them? What do you mean? Like, I was jealous, but like she was just it was wild. It was wild. It was actually really wild because what do you mean? No. Okay, done. But then there was like also something else that I forgot to mention. Their third act breakup, I feel like that could have been handled better. I honestly feel like that could have been handled better. And I think because of that, initially I wanted to give the book like a 4.75 because I was like, that third act breakup could have been handled a tad bit better because I feel like it didn't need to get to where it was at. But I genuinely really loved this book, and it's definitely a book that I will be rereading a few times in my lifetime. So I could not give it 5 stars because of that fact alone. Um, and yeah. The next book is Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. So okay, let me collect my thoughts. I liked this book. I like this book a lot. Essentially, this book is about a girl who her friend's name is Savvy. So she wakes up one day, she's like in her young 20s. She wakes up one day and she is covered in her friend Savvy's blood. And she's just roaming the streets. She doesn't know what's going on. So somebody finds her and then they're like, girl, why are you covered in blood? What happened to you? And she can't remember anything. So then they obviously go and they find Savvy's body and she's obviously unalive. But and then it fast forwards to years later when a man is doing a podcast episode on what truly happened to Savvy. Because even though everybody assumed that, and everybody blamed her, everybody said that she killed her friend, even though there was no evidence and she wasn't arrested for it because there was no evidence. But everybody basically just concluded that she had unalived her and that was the thing. So now when this podcaster comes back, she's like, this person's trying to ruin my already messed up life. So she goes back home, and then obviously the podcaster ends up there too, and then he starts interviewing people, and it's kind of like mixed media, but I feel like it's a mixed media that I can gel with. So that was a plus for me. And then you get like the podcast video elements of it where it's like the dialogue where they, and then you kind of find out with her how everything happened. And I feel like some people would think that maybe it's kind of like one of those thrillers where a person has like amnesia and then all of a sudden when it's the most convenient, everything just comes to her, which is kind of what happened. But I don't have much of an issue with like amnesia tropes. Unless they're done really badly. But I don't have an issue with like amnesia tropes, and I think they're okay. When a person just finds out what happened all in one go. I don't know, I feel like maybe that's how the mind works. Like things just start coming, especially if you're like in places that spark that type of thing, like if you're in the same place as where everything started, then you can remember. But yeah, that's basically the premise of that one. And so I like the fact that there was an element of a love story in this. I thought that was cute. I thought the main female character was funny. I genuinely found her to be funny. She was such an exciting person to read about, even though her life wasn't particularly exciting or anything like that. But she was just she, I was excited to read about her. Like, I wanted to become her friend because I felt like she was genuinely like, she was a good, not a good person, but she was like, I don't know if she was a good person or not, but she was like she was her personality, okay? She had a very nice personality, and I really, really liked her personality. And she was funny, and I liked that she was funny. And yeah, she had like a dark humor to her, like a dark sense of humor to her, and I kind of like that. But yeah, so I gave this book a 4.25. Honestly, because I genuinely enjoyed it, but I also kind of feel like there weren't enough moments in there for me personally. But yeah. Okay, and then the next book is And Then Life is Beautiful by Asia Monique. I let's just put it out there. I DNF'd this book because I was reading about a man, right? And he had he was dating somebody for like 5 years, and then he finds out that she had a baby and she didn't tell him, and then now he's having a situationship with somebody else and she's pregnant, so he's basically going to have kids that are like 1 year apart. And it's, I guess it's a lot for him. I don't know. But my initial issue was, I feel like he was meant to be the man that I was rooting for, obviously, because he's the main male character, and he was supposed to be a good guy. Like, so if I read a romance, I expect the guy to be a good guy, but I didn't see any positives in the first 20% of that book. And I tried waiting for them, but I was like, why wouldn't she tell him that she was having a baby? Like, if he was genuinely a good guy, she would at least let him know, but she kept it from him. The reason was the dumbest thing ever. I didn't understand what the reason was for him not telling her. And maybe people do things like that, but I wouldn't do something like that? Because if you really are a good person, and they were dating for like 5 years, they break up, she gets pregnant, and she doesn't tell him. What do you mean? What do you mean? And then he's in a situationship with somebody, and then he gets hurt. I'm like, that does not scream responsible to me, okay? That screams you're childish. You're doing stupid things? The type of stupid things that I would assume I would do. But I don't want that in my male characters, okay? Like, the men need to be more mature than that. So I didn't like that. I was like, you're doing things people do in real life, and I don't think that's like, it's not responsible. And I didn't think that I was going to gel with his anything, because she was literally praising him for doing basic things. Like, he was asking how she was, and he was like, oh my gosh, he's asking how I am, even though he's going through so much. He just found out he had a baby, babe. Your mother died. Of course he needs to find out how you're doing. Like, I was like, she was literally giving him props for being a somewhat decent man. And I didn't understand that. And I was like, this book is going to be exhausting to read about if she keeps praising him for doing the most barest of minimum-est things. Because no. So I DNF'd that book, and I really wanted to love it. I saw somebody's video on YouTube where she actually really liked that book, and I was like, it sounds interesting. Even though, what do they call it? Unplanned pregnancy tropes are not my thing. I kind of understand why, because it screams you're very irresponsible, and child, I can be irresponsible, okay? We're trying not to be irresponsible, but I don't need to read about a bunch of irresponsible fictional people as well in a romance book, you know? I can't give them that much grace. I can't. But it was just screaming very irresponsible, and I wasn't gelling with that. And it was something people do in real life, and I didn't like that. So yeah, I DNF'd it, but no. Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. I wasn't going to read this book, right? And then I saw a few people talk about how this is actually the best book in the series, and it's been years and I kept trying to avoid it, and I was just like, let me just bite and read this one book. I don't have to read the entire series. I think it's Dreamland Billionaire series, and I will say it's a forced proximity. What is it? Marriage of convenience, and I I do I see how the marriage is convenient to her apart from the fact that she gets a whole lot of money? No, because she doesn't seem like the type of person that's overly obsessed with money, so that part on its own was kind of, but what does she get to benefit from this? Like, why is she doing this? Is she just doing this because she can? Like, you know? She's doing this to help somebody else out. That part alone was kind of like a bit for me. But I read the book and I enjoyed it. Okay. Until I was so sure this book was going to be a four-star romance if it continued going in this direction. So for me to say the next few sentences is very heartbreaking, because I was enjoying this book until they got to the honeymoon. And she was like, I don't want to see him like naked. I don't want to see his abs or anything like that, walking on the beach. And then the friend was like, okay, well, in that case, how about South Africa? And the first thing she thought was safari. Safari? Somebody said South Africa, and the first thing she thought was safari, honey. And I was like, we have beaches down here too, ma'am. Like, we literally have beautiful beaches. We have a lot of beaches down here too. What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? The first thing that came to your mind was safari? I was so disappointed. Granted, it's probably the author's fault, but I was so disappointed. I was like, let me try and read on. Maybe they'll like not actually go to South Africa and then they'll move on to something else. But the next page, girl goes on some, I need some safari. I need to book some safari hotels, some safari huts, some safari hats, some safari caps, some safari underwear, some safari this, some safari that, some safari clothing for us. And I was like, there's no way. No. There's no way I'm gonna make it past this honeymoon thing. Like it's I feel like I don't like skipping parts of books. So if I had to skip like a huge chunk of the main thing in the book, every time they spoke about a safari, I cringed. And I was like, there's no way I'm gonna finish this book, because what do you mean? So how do you say South African? The first thing you think is safari. That traumatized me. It left me traumatized. I couldn't after that. And so I DNF'd it, unfortunately. And I was really having a really good time reading this book. I just couldn't, I cringed and I cringed and I couldn't anymore. Book 7 is Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve something. Everybody loved this book. Everybody loved this book. Everybody and their mother loved this book. So This is basically what the premise says. It's a kill for me, kill for you type of book. And where a woman and another woman meet. It's kind of like a retelling of Strangers on a Train, which I haven't read that one. I kind of need to read it because I've heard a lot of books being described to that, but it's kind of apparently it's a retelling of Strangers on a Train, and a woman meets another woman, and then they decide to kill for one another, and um this book was going so well, and I figured what was going to happen, like the plot twist that happens in the middle, because I feel like that was kind of very obvious. I'm sure everybody knew that that's what was gonna happen, but then as the book progressed, and I was like, maybe I know the other plot twist, and I actually did know the other plot twist. But what really made me so upset was that ending. Okay, so it's basically, so it's a woman, it's about two women that decide to kill for one another, right? But then there's another POV of another woman who happens to um come in contact, I don't know, she comes in contact, let's just say comes in contact with a serial killer, and he doesn't actually end up killing her, but he does hurt her really badly. And she's just traumatized by it, right? So it's basically just her and her husband and how they try to navigate the trauma that she went through, and the direction that that part of the book took, and the way it weaved into this part for me kind of upset me. And there was just this one part where they're on a train and people are passing one another by, and they mentioned that to throw you off. They mentioned that to throw me off. Okay, let me say that. They mentioned that to throw me off. And even after finishing the book, I still don't understand what that little part meant. That's what upsets me even more. Like, you did that on purpose to throw me off. But I'm still thrown off because why? Okay? But that's one part. That ending, because huh? I hate a book that roots for a man. A horrible, horrible man. In the end, he wins. What do you mean? Okay, let's get into spoiler territory again. Because how is it that the serial killer makes it out of there alive? How is it that the one person who is the least morally ambiguous in the entire book is the one that ends up in jail for the rest of his life in the worst prisons? In the worst prisons. Sure, this woman was sick and she needed psychiatric help, but then the other one who went and literally killed somebody with a hammer, she gets out scot free. Simply because, I don't know, did a cop find her attractive? I don't know what that was all about. But I was like, and the cop was like, you've been through so much. Okay, fine, but what about the crimes that you committed? And then she goes, and that serial killer, they have a thing, and then nothing in her brain clicks. Like, why did the serial killer do all of these things that he did? Why did he send me this letter? She's not even like, I'm gonna investigate. And that's not even the type of personality that she has. She's like, I'm gonna investigate what's happening here type of personality. But why didn't she investigate that? I hated this book so much. Okay, we're done spoiling. But I honestly hated this book so much because I couldn't understand why. Like, why would the bad guy win? Like, why would you let. Okay, this is kind of a spoiler too. But why would you let a serial killer win? Miss Ma'am? Mr. Sir, Miss? Like, what do you mean? I think the author of this book is actually a man. It's a Mr. Man, because really? A person who literally kills women for a living. And he's on some will. And then I just went on and did it elsewhere. And I just didn't do it around. I just went on and I did it elsewhere. I figured out. I clocked who he was. I clocked who he was. And I was like, somebody better find out who this person is. This woman better fix him. But instead, she let him go scot-free, and she was just like, I'm just gonna sit on the beach and go on about my life, okay? Because I mean, he did a favor for me, so I'll let him go scot-free. I'm sorry, but this book was upsetting. I didn't like anything about it. I gave it a 2.25 because I was entertained in some places, but not enough. Not enough. Not enough. Mind If series, okay? And I huh. I'm going to put this rating kind of like all five of them, but I didn't think all five books were a 5-star rating. But I will give the entire series a 5 stars. So I feel like this book is about a woman who starts dating a detective. What are they called? Is FBI, who starts dating an FBI guy. And yeah, no, I feel like that's all you really need to know from there. And then the book just kind of goes from there. It's a thriller book, and their romance was in some of the, because there's like five books essentially, five like small books. In some of the books, their romance was a bit something. Okay, it was a bit something. But the thriller aspect of the book was amazing. It was phenomenal. We love a boss B girl, and we love a girl who just goes around unaliving a bunch of really horrible men. So we love that for her. We love her. And I honestly feel like the series as a whole is a 5-star rating, 6-star rating. Just little parts of the books that weren't necessarily 5 stars, but I'm not gonna like nitpick on things like that. But the entire series for me was a 5-star rating, and I absolutely loved it. But there was something in the end that was just a bit weird, like the prologue, the epilogue. It was just something about that epilogue that was kind of just like a bit eye-twitching for me. But the book was good nonetheless. I don't really have much to say about it because the book was honestly good, and also because I read like five of the books, so I can't necessarily go into detail on every single one of them because I did start them last year. It was the last book was what I finished now this year. So yeah, I really did like the book. Okay, and then the last book, book 7, is Next of Kin by Kia K something. I'm so sorry for forgetting these people's names and for not having something, okay, that I can see the names on, okay? But yes, that is the book. So essentially this book is about something tragic that happens between two sisters, and it kind of just like changes the trajectory of their life. And then we just follow like basically like the court case of what happens in this book. And I had a nice time reading this book, I will say. But the reveal at the end, it wasn't, it was kind of the book took a direction which I didn't particularly like or even care for, if I'm being completely honest. It kind of felt a little bit eh, you know. But another thing that also kind of just like, how do I say it, didn't sit well with me was the court cases. Like I thought more gut-wrenching, thriller aspecty secrets would come out, but the secrets were just like boring. Like they were just basic secrets. They're like boring secrets that's what came out. And I just wanted there to be more secrets that were like you unalived somebody or you did something really traumatic. But they were just like she left the child for 5 minutes to go and get the child medication. I mean, that's kind of bad, but for a thriller book, it's not really all that bad. But yeah, so it was things like that, and I gave it a 3.5 stars because I had a really nice time reading it. But the direction that the book took, the ending of the book, I don't really have much to say about that. It was just a meh. It was just a bit meh for me. But yeah, so those are all the books that I read in January. Now we're gonna get into the books that I read in February. Okay, so in February, I didn't read as many books as January, but I also didn't DNF as many books as I did in January, so I guess that it evens out. But yeah, because in January I was just not having it with these really bad books. If I wasn't vibing with the book, or the book just, I didn't care for how the book ended. I was most likely going to DNF it. So I think that's me in general. But in January, I feel like I was just on a roll in January. I don't know what it was, but yeah. So the first book that I read in February was That's Not My Name by Megan Larry. I I really liked this book. I will say that. I really liked this book. I thought this book was pretty good. Um and I was entertained the whole time reading this book. It's a young adult book, which I typically don't gravitate towards, but it's a young adult book, and I really had a really nice time reading it. This is about a book where a guy gets accused of like being the reason why his girlfriend wakes up one day and she's missing. So a girl is missing in this book, and a guy gets accused of being the reason why she's missing, and he claims he doesn't know what happened to her or anything like that. They're like 18-year-old high school kids. And so yes, and then there's another POV that you get from a girl who is trapped in, not trapped, but a girl who gets into an accident and then she just wakes up and she doesn't know her name, she doesn't know what's going on with her. And then she goes to the police station until a man comes and he's like, I'm her father. And he obviously he gives proof and whatnot and whatnot. And the police officer is like, okay, there's enough proof. Let me see where you stay so that I can just come and visit her every now and then. So that's what happens. So we're following these two different POVs of the guy whose girlfriend is missing and the other girl who has no memory, but she's like living with her father in the forest, kind of like. It's not really their home, but it's kind of like where they're staying for the time being while their home is being renovated. So that's that. And we just follow through on what's happening, on what happens. The ending, it was, I didn't expect that. I will say that. I thought I knew the direction that the book was going because obviously, if I give you a guy, um, I mean, yeah, you kind of just, if I give you there's a guy whose girlfriend is missing, then there's a girl with her father, you kind of just start to see how their lives could interconnect. But I didn't predict the ending personally, and maybe somebody did. I feel like it's not a really hard or complex ending to predict. It's not all that shocking, but it was sad for me personally, and I was just sad when I read that ending, so that's that. And yeah. And I will say, I don't know if I mentioned that I gave it a 3.5, and I feel like the ending saved the book because it was really just going to be a 3. It was going to be a solid 3 because it was okay, like going into the book. But the ending saved the book. Like the ending really saved the book. But I also feel like it wasn't a book that I was particularly enjoying all too much, so I couldn't give it a 4, but the ending definitely saved it, and that's why I gave it a 3.5. And then the next book is Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. This book is very dear to my heart. It's a Christian romance, and it's honestly very dear to my heart because, okay, I don't know the the people on which it's based on in the Bible, because there is a part where he talks about it, but I haven't read that section in the Bible, honestly. I don't recall it. Maybe I have read about it, but I don't necessarily recall, so I can't say much on the actual the Bible, that the part of the Bible that the story is like making reference to. So, or not making reference to, but drew inspiration from. But I will say that this book is a Christian romance book. And if you are not into Christian romance books, or if you're not a Christian, maybe don't read it because it's very Christian-esque heavy. And I absolutely love that about the book. I've always consider myself to be a Christian, but I feel like lately I've been trying to get into a space where I am growing even further my relationship with God. So it was a book that was very dear to me, and it was a book that kind of just made me realize that sometimes it might seem like God doesn't love you or that he's not on your corner, that he doesn't care for you, but then he sometimes brings people into your life that remind you what love is, what God's love is, and how it's possible for you to be loved, even with all your mistakes, even with all the things that have happened to you in your past. Because this main female character, her past is very traumatic and she had a very tough life, and it's just sad. It's a very sad book, I feel like. And it also talks a lot about abuse, physical abuse of like children. Not a lot, but like it happens. So it's kind of it's a very sad book, I will say. But it's also a book about a person learning to know who God is and learning to love God and learning to understand that God loves them even though they've never seen him in their life before. So it's a book like that, and it's also a book about how sometimes people can. It's also, I think, from the main male character. It's a book about obedience to God and listening to God and what God wants you to do. And it's also a book about you not doing what you want but doing God's will. And it's such an amazing book with an amazing story. And that's really all that I have to say about it, and that's all I will say about it. But I obviously gave that book 5 stars. I obviously gave that book 6 stars, and I absolutely love that book. I thought it was a phenomenal read, and I will be reading it again in the future. I will be reading it again about 1 million times in the future. Maybe I might try to read it every single year, but yeah, there's another book by Francine Rivers that I want to read. There's a Christian book talk not book talker, a Christian YouTuber who I recently discovered, and she spoke about the fact that she read Redeeming Love and loved it, and then now she's in the middle of reading, I think it's The Masters, and she's been liking that too. So I think that's the next book that I'm going to read from Francine Rivers. And yeah, I absolutely love that book so much. And I think it's a must read if you're a Christian. I feel like if you're not a Christian, you might also find it to be a beautiful book, but I feel like you might also miss a lot of the key elements. That's why I'm saying that if you're not a Christian, I feel like you might not gel with the book as much. Because I might be a Christian, but I know what some I know what some people be saying about Christians, so I kind of feel like I can kind of see some people saying certain type of unkind things about the book, but obviously but missing the core elements of it. But Half a Soul by Olivia, I cannot pronounce the surname. And this book was so cute. This book is so cute. This book is about a girl who's essentially half of her soul was taken and she's just going around life with half a soul. I find it to be really funny, and it's a romance. Is it like a fantasy romance? No, it's just a romance. And so her and her cousin go somewhere and they meet somebody who decides to help her with her dilemma and help her get her soul back. And then it just goes from there. It's a beautiful romance story, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was super cute, and there really isn't much else to say about it. I just thought it was a really beautiful love story, and I thought it was super cute. And I gave this book 5 stars, but I feel like it's like on the lower of my 5 star reads. Like it could be like a 4.999999 read. But I gave it 5 stars because I couldn't find anything wrong with the book. And there was nothing wrong with the book, but there was just nothing wrong with the book. So that's why I give it 5 stars. I absolutely enjoyed reading it. But like I said, it's kind of like one of those books that I wouldn't be in a hurry to reread again. So there's that. Is Christina Forrest, but the book is The Neighbor Favor by Christina Florence Forrest. So this book was okay. Like, I felt like this book was okay. It's a romance book about a woman who starts emailing her favorite author. Like, he's like a one-hit wonder type of author. And she just discovered the book once upon a time, and he's never written anything else. There aren't any copies to be found anywhere else. So she read like a one-hit wonder person, and then one day she just comes across his website and she decides to email him for reasons unbeknownst to me, okay? And then they start emailing back and forth for a couple of months, and then just one day they stop emailing, and then a few months later or weeks later, I don't know, something later, she finds she's living with her sister, and then she finds her sister's neighbor attractive, and that's that. then it goes from there. I got like 40% into this book, if not 50. No, I think I got 50% into it if I remember correctly. And I just got bored. I didn't really care. I honestly didn't really care. I was like, because I wasn't rooting for their love story in the beginning. And then I wasn't rooting for it in the middle either. So I was like, what is the point? They both seem like, I think I mentioned it in a vlog. I'll put the vlog up here because the vlog, no, actually the vlog won't be up. But I mentioned it in a vlog. But he, they, they both don't seem like people that need to be in relationships to me because their lives are really, really bad. Both of them. Like, y'all don't need to be in relationships if you're both fighting demons, you know? Like, there are demons you can, like, fight together, but their kind were just. And the way she was just emailing a complete stranger and telling him her life story, like, right off the bat. Like, she didn't even try to, like, be like, what's your favorite color? You know, the basic things people talk about. No, she just went straight into the hardcore stuff. And I was like, well, how are you emailing a complete stranger your entire life story? She's like, well, maybe it's because I don't know you. Maybe we might never meet. I'm like, but still, you don't know this person. That's exactly why you shouldn't be telling them your deepest dark secrets. And it's like, it was just so random because he wouldn't even ask. He would just start blabbering and just talking and talking about everything. Everything. And I'm like, what? Why? That's weird. I felt like the author did that for the convenience of the book, for the convenience of the story. But I feel like in real life, nobody would do that, right? I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not. Maybe it's normal and I'm the weird one, but it was just weird for me. I was bored also and just bored, so I DNF'd that book. Which is weird because a lot of people really liked it. And I've been so eager to read it because I've heard so many people love it. And I've heard the most amazing things about it. But it just was not for me. And that's okay. That's okay. It just wasn't for me, and that's okay. So the next book is, I feel like there's another book I wanted to mention before this one, but I feel like I'll just mention this one and then just end it off on a good note. But the next book is The Drowning Woman, sorry. But the next book is The Drowning Woman by Robin Harding. And I started reading this book in 2024. I got 80% into it and I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't. I just couldn't finish it. I had soft DNF'd it at 80% because I honestly, truly couldn't finish it. I tried again in January and I couldn't get through a page of it. But then I finally managed to finish it now in February. And I can safely say that I finished this book and I can safely say that I hated this book. It was the most anticlimactic book I have ever read in my entire life. The most anticlimactic book ever. Okay? And hear me well when I say ever. Because what do you mean? It started off on such a high and I was enjoying it. And I was enjoying the reading experience. I was like, I'd never imagined I'd enjoy a book about a woman who was homeless, you know? I really enjoyed the book. I was having the time of my life reading it. And then it just crashed. It crashed and it was just went straight rock bottom. And it stayed rock bottom for the duration of the book. And I just couldn't get with it. Because one, in the beginning, it was one woman was the woman. It's about a woman who lives in a car essentially, and then she saves a woman from drowning. So when the book started, it was about the woman who lives in a car and she saved this woman from drowning. So the woman that was drowning was like the extra in the book. But tell me why she somehow became the main character and you never heard from this woman that was in the beginning of the book again. You just never heard from her again. And then in the epilogue, she had a happily ever after. Which granted fine. But like then the things that happened in the middle of when as the book progressed, I just didn't care for it. Like I said, the woman that was the one that was drowning became the main female character, and she was exhausting to read from. All she ever did was whine. I mean, sure, she was in a not so pleasant marriage, but all she ever did was whine. She would tell you in one sentence twice that she has the worst husband ever, that he's dangerous and terrible and this and this and that. In the same sentence. She'd be like, my husband is a terrible person. You don't know him. Then she'd be like, oh, no, 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 no. And she'd be like, my husband is is a dangerous person. You don't know him. You don't know him. I don't trust him. Like, girl, we get it. He's dangerous. You hate him. He's dangerous. He's dangerous. He abuses you. We get it, okay? But what are you going to do about it? All she ever did was whine. And even in the end, she did nothing to stand up to. Like, I love a boss B girl, but she was weak. She was weak. And I hate to have to say this about a survivor because she did survive him, but maybe I shouldn't say that she was weak, but I didn't like her at all. The book was anticlimactic. She was annoying because all she ever spoke about was how dangerous he was and how he was such a bad guy. That was all that ever came out of her mouth. And it got to a point where it was really exhausting because I think we get it. We get it. We got it. We get it. We got it. And I just, I just, no. That's it. No. So I gave that book 1.5 stars, and the zero point 0.5, I literally would have given it a 1, but the 0.5 was for the fact that it actually started pretty good. But then it just got so bad, so bad. It took like an entire 180. And I don't understand what had happened. Like, she starts, it was kind of like one person wrote the book and then they kind of just like their brain just jammed and then somebody else finished it off, just not with the same creativity and the same mindset as the initial person that wrote the book, because it went downhill and it just stayed rock bottom, and the ending was just boring. The ending was so boring. Oh my gosh, I didn't like that book. I really didn't like that book at all, honestly. In February was First Time Caller by B.K. Barrison. So this book is about a man who is a radio host, and a woman calls in one day and she needs help with love. Okay, she needs help with love, and it's a romance book, and you just follow through how she finds love, and it's such a beautiful story. It's a slow burn in the best way possible. It's the most authentic love story that I've read about in a while. It's so authentic, so free flowing. It's kind of like something that would genuinely truly happen to you in real life, and I love that about the book. I love that aspect about the book. It's also about like found family, I think, and it's just a beautiful book. And I loved it. I enjoyed it, and that's all that I can say about it. It also has a child in the book, and although in this book the child doesn't show up as much, I feel like, but it does also have a child in the book, and it was just an amazing book. I really absolutely loved it. It was definitely a 5-star read for me. Yeah, no, it was a 5-star read for me. Those are all the books that I read in January and February, and I had a lot of DNFs, okay? Because life's too short to be reading a book you're not enjoying, in my opinion. And if I'm reading a book and I'm not enjoying it, I probably don't care about the ending. And some of these, well, one of them should have been a DNF much sooner, but I tried to push through, and it turned out to be one of the worst books. That's my thing, because if I give a book anything less than a 3, it honestly should have been a DNF, because what do you mean? But yeah, so I had a lot of DNFs, and I also had a lot of 5-star reads, books that I thought were absolutely amazing. And surprisingly, the 5-star reads were romances, and yeah, so that's all that I have for you today. I hope you guys liked this video. I hope you guys will let me know which was your favorite book that you read in January as well as in February, and I hope you guys will like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And until next time, guys, bye.